Hi, my name is Ann Sermons Gillis, and I'm a member of Unity of Charleston. I'm interviewing members and friends of our Unity Church. And this morning, I've got a very special guest because we have an interim minister, and I want to welcome Reverend Richard Bunch. Welcome, Richard.
Well, thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, well, this has been quite a path for you. I know that you're a transitional minister, and I want to know, we're
Hmm.
going to start at the very beginning of your life. Where were
Okay.
you born?
I was born in Newport News, Virginia,
In Virginia. Well,
in
now
the Riverside Hospital. Yes.
your last church was in Virginia, correct?
Yes, it was.
Was
Actually,
that your hometown or?
well, no, Richmond was not my hometown, but
Okay.
it's about, an hour from Newport News is down in Tidewater. And so it was about an hour away. So we were back in Virginia. Had no idea we'd ever be back in Virginia because
Oh,
we'd been out of the state for 18, 19 years.
so the question is what brought you to
Mhm.
Charleston, that the area, but what I'm going to ask you is that what brought you to serve as an interim minister of this church? What made you decide, yeah, I think I want to do that? What was it?
Um, it was kind of interesting after I retired, um, and from full-time ministry, and I wanted to retire. I thought it was the right thing to do. I found myself after a few months trying to figure out what in the world I was going to do with the rest of my life. But anyway, what happened was I was looking for, the next step, which I didn't know what it would be, and um, I've never believed for Richard Bunch that as a minister I would retire. It's a passion, it's a calling. And so what happened was is that I met a Episcopal minister in the area where I live now, and we just by coincidence we just happened to meet, and he was telling me about the interim minister process and transitional minister process, and he was a trainer for that. So I started to look into it, and so I enrolled in the classes that are given by the International Association of Interim Ministers and took the classes. And then I found out that Unity has a group of consultants. They call them consultants, they don't call them interim ministers. That's why I didn't put the two together. And so then I went and talked to Unity, of course, and found out about that program. And then it took me about a year and a half to go through the training and go through the things so that I was approved and had some shadow work. So I was approved as a transitional consultant, which is approved by the Unity Board.
Okay, well, so you were a minister before. Were you Unity minister before, or have
Oh
you?
yeah, I've always yes. Well, many years ago when I was very young, I was a Baptist minister, but I was not ordained. I was licensed,
Mhm.
and um, and that was when I was in college, and I used to speak a lot all over Virginia and North Carolina, and so that's why they licensed me. I'm still a licensed Baptist minister. They will not, they don't take it away or
Okay.
anything like that. But that was my first background in ministry, yes.
Oh, great. So if the Baptist church needs somebody, they can go rope you in, huh?
No, no, I won't go there today. Not
Okay.
because I don't. I love the Baptist, and I have relatives who are Baptist ministers, but basically I know the difference, and I don't think they would be interested in my message.
Well, what do you think the difference is? Now, you've been on both sides of what's the difference
Hmm.
between being in Unity and being in the Baptist church? What are some of the main differences?
Well, it's been a long time, but basically the fundamental difference that my brother-in-law, who is a Baptist minister, very successful Baptist minister, and I have chatted about is we are in alignment about a lot of things, but when we get to Jesus Christ as personal Savior, that's where the difference is. That's where I see Christian denominations as that part of um, that belief system, which we don't believe. Obviously, we see Jesus as a way shower. And so he and I talk about that. We've had discussions about it, and but that's where the division point is, I would say. Uh, Interpretation of Jesus's message. Obviously, is a big change. We do it metaphysically. They tend to be a little more literal, the Baptists that I know. And I'm not quite as evangelical as I used to be, because I look at transformation, not coming to Jesus as the solution.
So a lot of people, especially people that are new to Unity, when we say Jesus was a way shower, usually in a sermon, people will say, well, we believe Jesus is the way shower and we will go on. So could you just define for people that have maybe never heard that phrase,
Yes.
what that actually means?
Well, for me, it means, and I think in unity, it means that Jesus is a powerful force and is the guidance, his teachings are a guidance for unity and for our lives, for being practical and progressive and positive. Christianity is what we call it. And that's what Jesus was teaching, we believe. He was teaching people how to live in life, how to be in charge of their lives, as difficult as that was in that day and time, and how to find the kingdom of heaven within themselves. And I personally don't think that he was teaching people that he was the savior and that he would die for their sins. I don't get that out of his message.
Right.
That's after he died, okay? Yes.
Right. So could you tell us a little bit, like, what is the difference between the teachings of Jesus, what Jesus
Mhm.
taught, and the Christ consciousness?
Um, well, I don't know if there's a difference as much as the Christ consciousness comes from within us. We are born with it. We call it the Christ consciousness. There are a lot of, I think, words we could use.
What are some
Uh,
of those? What are some of the other things that people
well,
might?
I think spirit within, beingness, my beingness, the I am within me. Those are words that I would use to describe that Christ consciousness. And I don't mind using, I use the word Christ consciousness, but I like to explain to people I'm not talking about just Jesus, that I believe what he was teaching us and how he is a way shower was that we could be like him. And even as he said, do more than he did. Okay.
I think it
Uh,
is important to make that distinction. So
yeah,
the teachings are really more of an outer experience, and the Christ consciousness is more of an inner
it's
experience.
totally the
Is
inner
that
experience.
what you're
Yes.
saying? Okay,
Yes.
great. Well, I'm going to switch over from some of the spiritual topics
Okay.
to just some of the basic things of your life. Do you have any children? And if so, how many children, girls,
Yep.
boys, whatever?
Yeah. Vicky, my wife, and she's also a minister, a unity minister. We went to school together, as a matter of fact. Vicky and I have 4 children. They all 2 of them are by my first marriage and 2 are by her first marriage.
Okay.
But they blended very well. And we've been married for 33 years now, so I think they've gotten used to us. And we have a great relationship with them. We also have 6 grandchildren. Um, and so we don't have any great grandchildren yet. And I'm not sure it's going to happen at this point. But anyway, we do have, and our oldest grandchild is 37 years old. So anyway, 36 years old, I'm sorry.
Oh, wow. Uh,
Yeah.
that's something. Well, I want to ask you a little bit about your career. Have you been a minister throughout your whole working career?
No, no, I became a minister. Um, I gave up what I thought was going to be the ministry for me at some point in my life while I was in college, actually, before I went to seminary. And then I went into the business world and I eventually founded a successful business that
What
ended
kind
up
of
with about,
business? What kind of business
it
were you?
was a financial planning business, we were a finance company in essence, I said that wrong. We were a financial planning company, but we had about 6 or 7 divisions in it. It was fairly large. We had about 300 employees and served 1,000 clients a year at least.
So you started this company that had,
Yeah. Yeah,
300
I started
employees?
that in 1978.
Wow. Oh, that's
Yeah,
that's that's water under the bridge, but that was a big accomplishment
it
for
was.
sure.
Yes. And it's been very helpful to me in the work that I do now. Because I had a lot of business training, and I think churches are a business, a spiritual business, but they're a business.
Right, right. Well,
Yes.
when you were in business, did you know any of the Unity principles that did you work any of them, or did you just go from a straight business perspective?
No, what I would call, I didn't know them then, but unity principles, the law of mind action, one of the big ones.
Hmm.
I used that. Um, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, was one of the first authors back in the late 60s, early 70s that I wrote. I read
Right.
and followed. Augmendino was another one who taught positive Christianity, I believe. A little more fundamental than I am, but he was there. I thought he was great. And so, and the company I joined, which was named Connecticut General when I started, which then I got out of and started my business. But they really were um, positive uh, and teaching positive ways of seeing yourself so that you can be successful. I think that was probably the biggest thing. And and it's so important to envision others as successful in a positive way. It and letting them know that you believe in them. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and when that happens, all kinds of great things can happen. And I think that's basically was the foundation of the way I managed, is encouraging people, empowering people.
So it sounds like you started actually the way that I started, and I think a lot of people start that way, and that is with the motivational speakers. So you go to
Yes.
motivational speakers and you find out that you can make choices in your life and you can have a
Yep.
positive outlook. And then you just keep going deeper and deeper into the heart and revealing different things that we might not know from a head level.
Yep.
And so I think that that happens that way for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So how did your spiritual search start? It sounds like you had one start and then a stop and then another start.
Yep. Well, I didn't know it at the time, but my wife Vicky really um we had dated before in high school. We'd gone steady. We were serious, okay? And we broke up. And anyway, we went our own ways. And then about 25 years later, we found each other again. And we started to date. We took our time because we knew we were different people than what we knew in high school. But we got married and it's worked out beautifully. It's been a wonderful thing. She envisioned us having a spiritual journey together. She always thought that's what we should have had. And so that's what's happened. And I give her a lot of credit. Uh, and then she actually found Unity for us in El Paso, Texas. And we
Oh,
started going to Unity there. That's where, and then, I mean, they were without a minister. They didn't have any money. They were really coming apart at seams. And I just didn't have anything else to do in a sense. And I got involved, and that's was my start back into ministry in a sense, or in ministry at
oh,
El Paso, Texas.
in El Paso, Texas. Well, you probably remember my husband, I think, probably told you that we moved here from Texas. So,
Yes,
yeah, so we have lots of fond memories of Texas.
yes.
So, your wife actually found Unity for you. So, you've had a long time in this tradition. And
Hmm.
what now is your philosophy of life?
Um, well, my vision statement is transform lives, transforming the world. I firmly believe that even though we look at the world today and ask and question and wonder, that all these things are happening for a purpose. That we are on a path as spiritual beings to get to the omega point. And the omega point is where all of us come together and we're not alike, but we are able to live our lives and understand each other and be at peace with one another and grow together, uh, even with different belief systems. will be peaceful and joyous, and it will be a world that works for all. I believe in that 100%. It may not come during my lifetime, but it's going to happen because I think that's the path we're on, personally.
I like that. I think that there is a great strength in diversity. And when we have that kind of
Mhm.
diversity with different cultures and different walks of life, we bring something that could not be brought by the table through just one culture, one lineage.
Right,
And,
right.
basically, you know, that book about kindergarten, everything I learned in
Yes.
kindergarten is basically a world where everyone gets along pretty well.
Hmm. Yes, that's
It's just a
exactly right.
world where we all get along.
Yeah, yeah. See,
Be
I think
nice.
most people have same in common goals across the world. I really do. It's the leadership that gets us in trouble sometimes, okay? And I'm speaking about world leaders who feel they have to protect their countries and not that there's something wrong with them, it's just a difference in how they have to be. And that causes obviously differences, controversy, war, all those kind of things. And I do envision at some point our world leaders actually uh, having a transformation of what their work is to do so
It's a
that
great
we
vision
all are
to hold.
guided in the right direction.
It's a great vision to hold. And as we say in
Yep,
unity, what you think about, you bring about. Thoughts and feelings, held in
absolutely.
kind,
Yes,
tend to produce after their kind. So, yes.
absolutely.
Yes. Well, what do you have any favorite books or authors that are kind of in the unity slash
Yeah.
metaphysical arena
Oh, sure.
that you
Well,
recommend or that meant a lot to you?
yeah. Well, Charles Fillmore's book on prosperity meant a lot to me. Um, and the reason it did is because I was scared of prosperity when I came into Unity. And the reason I was is that my definition of prosperity was ego driven.
Mhm.
And it actually got, and I didn't handle it well. I was very prosperous, and I eventually lost just about everything that I had. And so coming into Unity, I was kind of scared in a sense. I had to understand this, but for a while I was kind of scared of prosperity, the word prosperity. Um, and uh, and eventually I started to understand it and understand it from the perspective of not letting the ego be in charge, but let spirit bring your prosperity and abundance into your life. And when that happened, it opened my eyes, I think, in my heart to being abundant, not having so much money or wealth, just being abundant. And so it was very helpful to me. But Charles Fillmore's book on prosperity, I thought was really good. There's many others out there. Edwin Gaines, her book on prosperity, and so many of them. And I've enjoyed all of those books as I've moved forward. And I, I particularly like Eric Butterworth. I like his writings. Troward is one of my favorite authors. I like Emerson. I've read a lot of his work. So you know, and yeah, and then new authors come along, like Singer. Forgotten his first name, but Singer, Michael Singer.
Michael Singer, yeah.
Yes, you know, and they just have a touch and they bring things together, and Deepak Chopra and all that group. So I wouldn't say there's any one author. There are many authors, and I'm always looking for the new ones, or it's new to me anyway.
Yes, and we have so many wonderful spiritual teachers and books these days. And with
Yes,
self-publishing, you know, people may not have the fanciest books, but there's some wonderful books that are out there
yes,
that never used to get. I mean, there were a lot of teachings, a lot of thoughts, but they never got out to the public because we didn't have the wherewithal to get them all out.
that's
But now
right.
everybody's got a
Yeah,
computer, we can get all kinds of information out. So
yeah.
thank you. Yes, that's a great start. Those books for anyone that is
Hmm.
going spiritually in the kind of the unity way.
Yeah. And the connection between my business life and the books I read and Unity are very, very similar. And so it brought back a lot of those ideas that I had used to be successful in business.
Yeah, I remember Catherine Ponder tells a story in one of her books about how, and I know you like her if you like the prosperity,
Yes.
but I think she talked about going into prison and what, no, it wasn't a print. She went into an office and they had to lock the account. She was doing some kind of accounting. They had to lock them in. And she thought, oh, she had claustrophobia. She couldn't believe that they were going to lock her in. That would be so terrible. But then she went into the Unity Ministry and she went to the prison and they had to lock her in. And she was not phased at all. And she said if it had not been for her experience in business, that she could never have done
Yep.
that.
Yep. Yes.
So, and I'm sure Ponder is one of the people that you must like too, if you like the,
Oh, I mean, I think I've read all of her books just about, okay, over
and
the
I,
years.
and I think
Yeah.
she's still alive.
Uh, I do too. I think Catherine is still alive, actually.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. I mean, every time I look her up, she's still there. So,
Oh, okay, good.
yay,
Yep.
she's still there. She must be 100 years old at this point. So,
Yes, at least.
uh, do you participate in any kind of spiritual practices?
Well, I meditate daily. Uh, I'm not a proponent for me of it has to be a certain amount of time. I don't have to be in it 59 minutes or, 28 minutes. I meditate until I have a schedule, obviously, but I meditate until I'm comfortable. And when I feel like I'm filled, when I feel like I've finished, I'm finished. And then I meditate during the daytime also, maybe 1, 2, 3 minutes. And I try to, it's not called meditation, but I try to, before I have a meeting with anybody, set an intention of how I want to be in that meeting. Um, and, and so, and that's a form of prayer and meditation for me. But what I really like to do is use meditation as I need it. And I need it several times a day. It's not something I can do without. Um, and it can be 30 seconds long, and it can be an hour and a half or 2 hours sometimes.
Okay.
That's one.
Yeah.
Um,
And
I, I,
I just want to
you know,
mention the thing on the intention that you said, the first talk that you gave, you mentioned
yes,
Shelby Spong had started setting an intention. Do you remember what that story was? You were saying how it changed his.
yes, very much. That's how I came into it. Bishop Spong was talking about how he used to meditate, and then at some point he stopped meditating for 2 hours, as he said, and at that time, and he started meditating for an hour and setting intentions for an hour. And he would go through his day, literally, as he sat there and think about the appointments he was going to have or what was going to happen during the day. And he'd set an intention of how he wanted to show up. Now, he believed he should show up to be the best that he could be in that meeting. And that really struck me. And I started doing it, and it just made a huge difference in how it made a difference in how effective I was, I think, in those meetings.
Well,
Okay.
you say that, I just want to parse that out a little bit. How
Sure.
long do you do that? And could you give us an example of, let's say you're going into a meeting, what would your process be? How would you be doing that? What would you do?
Sure. First of all, if I know about the meeting, and most times I do, in the morning during my meditation time, after my meditation time, I will think about, and I don't take a long time, but I think about how am I going to show up? And sometimes it's not how I'm going to show up, but how am I supposed to show up? And affirm that that's going to happen. Uh, and and so, I mean, in ministry, you have some very difficult meetings sometimes with folks. And so my goal is that um, that I show up in such a way that I behold the Christ in that person, period. I don't see their stuff. I acknowledge it's there. I don't deny it, but I don't let their stuff affect me, and hopefully, and I don't let my stuff affect them. And in setting the intention, it clears the air, I believe. I had a situation in my church where uh, two people were having a real difficult time with each other, challenging time with each other. And what I had to do was, and I didn't do it effectively at first. Um, what I did at first, which is my business world, okay? was I became very centered on not taking either party's plate or either person's uh, position, and just being a neutral person in it. And what happened was that each of them felt like I didn't care about them when you get down to it. And so I learned from that I can show that I care. That doesn't mean I'm taking sides. And it provided over time, by bringing it back together, and I actually asked them to forgive me for that, we were able to start to resolve their issues, I think because I had set an intention and later a new intention of how to be, and it came out that way, and they felt it, and they started to talk, and it eventually resolved what were really, really hard feelings with one another, and was affecting some of the church, the ministry, and so that's an example, but usually it's just something simple, like I'm having a meeting with a person, I want to hear them, and I want to make sure I actively listen. So that's my intention, to actively listen and to feel what they're saying. And if somebody comes in and they start to react with me, my natural nature, my human nature is to be defensive. And what I have found, I've been able to manage that by setting the intention of not being alarmed by what they say, but instead of being reactive, to be responsive. That's my real goal.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. I think I've heard it said that when somebody hurts us, rather than get revenge, when we can tell that we're really spiritually growing is that when we try to have understanding of where they're coming
Yes.
from, rather than trying to
Yes.
get back with them,
Yeah.
and not try to take the stage
Right.
stage from them, but just be kindness. I think maybe what
Uh-huh.
you're talking about, it sounds like that you're setting the stage for kindness to live, and that people can
Thank you.
feel that
Yes.
when you do
Yeah,
that.
I always remind people, if you're walking down the street and you don't know the person whatsoever, and they across the street from you and they wave at you and they say, "You're the ugliest person I've ever seen," it doesn't affect you. You don't know them. They're just talking, okay? You don't feel that. But if your best friend says that to you, you have a little different reaction. And so we have to understand that we have to respond rather than react to that close friend who may say something to us, intentional or unintentional, that triggers us.
Yeah, it's really easy to be generous and kind when everybody's just hunky-dory and beautiful and wonderful. But
Yes,
when there's just this little blip, we can tell how much we've gone spiritually by how we react, or whether we
true.
act or
Absolutely.
react. So that's a
Yes.
great point. Thank you.
Hmm.
So, well, that's about all my questions. I wonder if there are any closing words that you have.
Well, I'd like everybody to know that I am excited to be here at Unity of Charleston, that I feel that I've been guided here. That's the way I try to look at each circumstance, because actually there were two churches that I was interviewing that I thought I was going to go to one of them. And both of them actually, while both of them phased out, and I didn't go to either one of them. And then Unity of Charleston came up, and I wouldn't have been able to go to Unity of Charleston if I'd taken one of those churches. And I feel like that, you know, that's just the way what was supposed to happen. I'll put it that way, okay? And so I feel called here. I feel even more called here because the board asked me to stay longer, and I had to say to them, I'm looking at another situation. And when I took a look at that situation, I realized that it was not for me, that where I am is where I'm supposed to be. And so I still have work to do here, and I know that. And I don't exactly know what it all is. That reveals itself as we move along, but I just know it and feel it. So I'm going to be on. I'm going to be here for during the first of the year at least, and probably until you find a minister.
That's right. Well, we are looking forward to hearing from you and what you have to teach us. And thank you for being with us and being so gracious today for this interview. Thank you very much. Richard.
Thank you, Ann. I really enjoyed it and I appreciate being with you. And I know I mean, I can just tell and feel what a benefit you are to Unity of Charleston. So thank you.